Now, Rishi Sunak's been running the economy for the best part of the last 2.5 years. His plan has been what has been running this country. To some extent, do Tory MPs not want to see a change in economic policy? Want to see more growth-focused and lower tax in terms of how the economy's run?
Well, you can't be more growth-focused than Rishi Sunak. I mean, the guy is a massive supporter of all the parts of the country, parts of the economy, the sectors of the economy that are growing fast and are going to shape our future. But you've got to have a credible plan. You can't just say things that might sound good or you think might sound good. You've got to have a plan that can actually deliver and is grounded and responsible, and that's what Rishi Sunak has got. And if you think about it, this country has had the most intense economic headwinds. Getting through the pandemic, where the furlough scheme and all the support for small business was absolutely vital. And then the inflation shock that's come from a combination of China still trying to pursue this impossible zero COVID strategy, and of course the war, which has led to the sharp rise in energy prices. Those are the two big impacts, negative impacts in terms of them pushing up inflation. We've got to grip inflation first and not do things that might make it worse. And that's what Rishi's plan is all about. Get growth going, get inflation down, and cut taxes when we can.
Aren't there taxes you could cut that would in themselves bring inflation down? VAT being an obvious example.
What you can't do is pump up the economy further and pump up inflation more by loosening fiscal policy at a time of high inflation. We've got to remember the lessons from the past. Nobody in policy-making circles, whether officialdom or in politics, was there when inflation was 10% or higher last time, 30, 40 years ago. You cannot forget the lessons from the past. It was Margaret Thatcher who said sound money must come first. In fact, she said sound money is the basis of sound government. You've got to get inflation under control first, and of course cut taxes when you can. And if you listen to some of the people who worked with Margaret Thatcher, they're exasperated at her being prayed in aid for the idea that you can have unfunded tax cuts that can't be afforded. And if you think actually about Rishi, he grew up in a pharmacy, in a chemist shop, understanding that family budget, understanding the way you've got to make ends meet. That's what we've got to do today, and that will get us out of these economic challenges whilst focusing on the exciting industries of the future that Rishi is a big champion of.
His classmates at Winchester College might disagree that it was the most ordinary background in the world, but I want to just speak on this idea of inflation, because it's £37 billion of spending, not all of it funded, raising $5 billion with a windfall tax and then spending £37 billion. Does that sound fiscally responsible?
Well, if you look at the books at the Treasury, they add up and they get debt coming down. And that's what we need to do as a country. We need to get debt coming down, inflation coming down, and taxes coming down. We shouldn't be trying to choose between those and just go for one of the three. We've got to have a responsible, credible economic policy. And when it comes to Rishi's background, born in a pharmacy, to a mum who's a pharmacist, a dad who's a GP. He got a scholarship to a great school. He got into a great university on merit. He was then a successful businessman. These are things that we in the Conservative Party value, we care about. That is great. And it's great that our country can produce an exceptional individual like Rishi Sunak by giving them a great start that he, through his hard work, has been able to build on. And if you think about it, look back 50 years, two people come to this country to make a better life for themselves and their family, and their son has been Chancellor of the Exchequer. I think it is a great positive story, and I want to see more stories like that, and I admire people like that, and that's one of the reasons I admire Rishi.
Now, just finally in this conversation, we've got two candidates left in this race of five who would describe themselves as being on the free market right. You've got one candidate in Tom Tugendhat who might be more of a One Nation caucus person. You've got a candidate in Penny Mordaunt who might fit into the sort of Cameroonian liberal conservative wing. Where does Rishi Sunak fit?
He's a conservative, and he unites a broad church of the Conservative Party. And I think that's another one of his many advantages.
Matt Hancock, thank you.